So thank you for Rachel for stepping in. The University of Toronto have done a lot of great stuff with Omeka, and hopefully you'll see some of the things that she's been doing here, and also be able to ask some of the questions that you're asking on Monday. So I'll pass over to Rachel, and thank you.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. I'm going to try to share my screen. Do this. Can you all see my screen? I hope so.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Di Cresce. I work at the University of Toronto as a project librarian. I've been working there for a few years now, since 2016. And I was the librarian responsible for the project which developed these IIIF plugins that I'll talk about today over the years of 2016, 2017. And I also helped to set up some of the IIIF infrastructure that exists now more broadly in my department to serve the University of Toronto libraries. So I can give a little details about that as well and how these sort of things all work together where we are. So I work within the Information Technology Services Department at the library. It's situated in one of our main downtown libraries in the city of Toronto. We are a bit of a unique department in that we are a team of librarians, developers, and network services staff, as well as some IT support staff as well that all work in the same department. And some of the work that I'm particularly involved in, and several of the other groups are involved in, are projects and services that have to do with our digital collections at the university and tools in which to make use of those digital collections. So I have some examples here, and I realize I'm not in presenter mode. Hold on. This will make it easier for everyone to read. Great. Some of the projects I have kind of listed here, they're just like a very small number of them. We actually have quite a few. They kind of range from things like we have archival collections around the discovery and early development of insulin, which happened at the University of Toronto. This includes archival records, like lab notebooks. We also have artifacts and things like that. This is actually a IIIF collection now that we recently, the last year or so, have made. The Omeka plugins, obviously, which is why a lot of you are here to talk about, as well as several paleography projects. In particular, we have French and Italian paleography, and this was done in conjunction with the Newberry Library and St. Louis University. And it's making use of some of our IIIF infrastructure, as well as a transcription tool from SLU called TPen, and some of our other digital collection platform infrastructure as well. So just sort of all over the board, we have sort of many things going on here, all sorts of different types of projects and different services that we offer. Collections U of T is where we have our sort of where we deposit digital collections from our several libraries at the university. It began in 2014. We have about 200,000 images, 5 terabytes of data. We have TIFF and JPEG images, mods, XML metadata. We are, I would like to say, in a bit of a transitional period right now, because as you may know, if you know anything about platforms and things, they go out of support, and we're in that situation right now. So a lot of this might change, but the IIIF infrastructure that we have in place will not. If you're interested in looking at some of the collections we have, I just have a link there for you guys to take a look at. And some of the things that we've done with IIIF is integrate a IIIF viewer, in this case Mirador. And so any of our digital collections at the library that you see on our site can be opened and viewed within a IIIF viewer Mirador. So that's just a small little bit of things that we have integrated, as well as you'll see a IIIF icon, which you can actually see down here, as well as the manifest link there. So sort of small little things that we've done to sort of help with user interface and sort of make it obvious, or a little more obvious to the user, that we are making use of the IIIF specification. So we began experimenting with IIIF for, I'm going to go back one, for our digital collections a while ago, so probably about 2015 was sort of our first jump into it. We tried to do it with some of our paleography projects in particular, and this was sort of on a small scale, but we, we were trying to sort of dip our toes in and see how it would go. I have a bit of an image here that sort of gives you an idea of the infrastructure that we have set up if you're particularly interested, and I'm actually going to like open it for you guys in a bigger way here because it's yeah, a little too small there. So I'm just gonna maybe go in here. So it's fairly complicated, as you can see here, and I would like to take this time to start by saying we were working within the sort of infrastructure that was already kind of built and existed, and we wanted to add this sort of IIIF functionality, but we knew we had to work within what we had at the time. We didn't have the resources to sort of tear down and start again, and nor did we necessarily want to do that at that time. So some of the decisions we made were done because of that, and if given the opportunity, and that opportunity is coming, we would rethink some of the ways in which we're doing things here when it comes to IIIF, and also the way that we're managing our digital collections. So in addition, several of our collection infrastructure pieces are becoming end of life very soon. You'll see Islandora on here and Drupal 7 and things like that. So if you're working with any of those, you know that that's coming down the pipeline. So we will actually be changing a fair amount of this technology eventually, and we'll take that opportunity to really rethink how we're serving our patrons and how we actually make use of the IIIF, as well as all the Omeka work that we've done in a more robust way to serve our users. So when we get content into our infrastructure, we sort of ingest it through Islandora. It gets deposited into Fedora as sort of the long-term storage of it and management of the object. It's displayed through Drupal, and upon ingest, we create IIIF manifests, and they get served out by Loris, and the scripts that we use for that are written in PHP. So Loris is the image server we're using right now. It's also what we use for our Omeka sites, so they're hooked into our Loris to serve out some of the Omeka content that we create with these IIIF plugins. So I'm going to go back to my slides here. And so that's sort of what's going on there. And I just made note of the librarian, Kelly Babcock, and the developer, Sunny Lee, who are the primary workers on this portfolio and handling IIIF collections. So they are the people who know the most and are planning for the new iteration of it. Our digital scholarship unit is what I'm going to be talking about a little bit more right now. And it's sort of where this Omeka work kind of falls under. So the digital scholarship unit is run by Leslie Barnes with the developer Mo Hejanova. And they support services to support digital scholarship, consultations with faculty, researchers, and students, run workshops on digital scholarship topics, and they support some faculty projects as well. I have just a couple linked here or shown here, but they all fall under sort of different frameworks. One of the big ones that is used is Omeka. So we use Omeka at ITS for a lot of faculty projects as well as a lot of student projects. So in particular, for classrooms, a lot of times professors would like to use Omeka just as a tool to create new interesting projects, or just ways in which they can get everybody involved in something online and sort of students can work together, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a permanent thing. So we do put up Omeka sites or exhibits up, and then with the intention that they will not be up forever, that they will come down at the end of the class. But that sort of helps sort of open up some new avenues for students to actually interact with some materials. Obviously, in the current situation, being in person with an object is less and less likely. It was already difficult for a lot of undergraduates to actually get time with manuscripts in our Rare Book library to begin with, because usually it's only graduate or higher who get access to them to do research. So this sort of reliance on digital objects is it's very prominent, and so this is sort of one way in which we can help sort of facilitate that research and sort of open up new ways for these students and professors to actually make use of some of the data and images and objects that are available not only at U of T but elsewhere as well by using IIIF and Omeka. In the future, we do want to integrate sort of the way in which we run these things, so that Omeka over here with digital scholarship and digital collections over here, we will put up Omeka sites for one-off projects, sometimes depending on what type of project it is for faculty. Otherwise, there is an exhibits.library site, and that allows people to create their own exhibits. And we have different smaller libraries that create exhibits of particular collections they want to highlight. We have art galleries on campus that would like to put up images that they do as well to create exhibits. Communications creates some exhibits depending on if it's the 100th year of U of T or something like that. They put together a digital exhibit, they would do that there. So it kind of runs the gambit of all different types of use cases. And this is sort of where we ended up developing. So IIIF and Omeka, this came about through a project funded by the Andrew Mellon Foundation called the Digital Tools for Manuscript Study, again, that I worked on. One of the outputs of this was a series of IIIF plugins for Omeka Classic. We also developed a few other tools as well, but the aim was to serve scholars who are working with IIIF materials of manuscripts. So we wanted to create a sort of a series of pluggable tools and make use of the IIIF specification so that we could support that kind of research. And we did this at the library in conjunction with the Center for Medieval Studies at the University of Toronto as well. So we kind of, it was nice sort of pairing up because we kind of had the users right at our disposal to help inform the development decisions that we were making. So one thing we wanted to do was make sure that when we developed these plugins, we weren't actually forking Omeka and creating our own special version of Omeka, but actually working within the data model and the structure that already exists to sort of just lay more functionality on top of it. That was very important to us because we wanted them to be reusable, and we didn't want to sort of create this special kind of version that ends up not being very sustainable or reusable truly. So Dixon Law was the developer who worked mostly on these plugins. You'll see his name all over them on GitHub and things like that. He is the sort of the mastermind behind them, and there's quite a series of them, but I will go into like the ones that are most prominent or we see most used anyway in classes and in research, and sort of show you kind of how that goes. We chose Omeka for a few reasons. In particular, it was because we already saw that it was being used among our user group. People were comfortable with it. It has quite a low barrier to entry in the sense that it's fairly easy to use. It's not too complicated. People seemed very comfortable kind of going in there and figuring it out. There are a lot of teaching and scholarship applications of the platform, and we definitely wanted to like wade our way into that. And also we saw that it was widely used by a lot of smaller or heritage or educational institutions that maybe don't have as much technical support or capacity available to them. But they were able to, use Omeka. So we thought this would be an interesting way in which to make our stuff reusable for those kinds of institutions, that they could actually come into the IIIF community a little bit as well through these plugins. We did build again with that rule of we didn't want to fork it, we didn't want to create something special. So that does inform some of the decisions that we made when we were designing the plugins, because of the fact we were working around the way in which Omeka natively works. But for the most part, I would say we were very successful, and the people who use these plugins are very happy with their functionality. So I'm going to focus on two main ones, but I will mention the other ones, but I'm going to show you sort of two main ones that sort of give you the bulk of the IIIF functionality that we've added to Omeka Classic. So IIIF Toolkit adds lots of things. It's our sort of main one. So it allows you to ingest IIIF content from anywhere that's open. Right now, you can only ingest on our sites from places that actually are secure. So if you do not have an HTTPS URL for your manifest, it will fail upon ingest, and that's because we have to abide by our network services rules for security. But we're hoping that eventually everyone will have secure URLs, and that'll be fine. But so far we haven't had a problem because most of the things that people are using are already secure. So you can add metadata that is ingest the IIIF metadata that already exists, but also supplement with your own metadata if you have more. It creates a mirrored or image viewer embed in all of the item pages and collection pages, and I will show you that. It allows you to do things like annotation, create open annotation specifically, and as well as use the tagging feature in Omeka. If you're familiar with that at all, you can add tags and organize objects that you have within your Omeka instance based on these tags as well. And you can also reorder canvases. So this is pretty much something that I've seen a lot of manuscript scholars do. Sometimes they want to rearrange the order in which a manuscript pages show up in a manifest because perhaps it's been rebound at some point. Perhaps they're trying to figure out what it looked like originally or afterwards, something like that. So that is a function that we also added, which might seem slightly out of place here, but it was sort of a request that we got from our users and is actually quite heavily used. And also with all of this is integrating with the already existing exhibits and neatline modules that exist in Omeka. So I will show you those, what they look like if you're not familiar, but it's simply being able to use this IIIF content as well as the viewer and this annotation functionality within these other plugins that are popularly used in teaching and in scholarship. So I have a video to show you first of all, this toolkit plugin of Ingest that I'm going to run and just talk over, but then I will go into the site and show you a little bit more. I didn't want to run through Ingest just in case we ran into an issue. So I thought a video might be a little bit better for that. So give me a second here and I will run this for you. So what we're doing is we're navigating to the page and going to walk through sort of how to import a manifest. So let's say there's a manifest somewhere else, you want to import it and do some work with it. You can select sort of that you're going to ingest that manifest or canvas or collection from where you are. Right now I'm using one from eCodices, which is the, I think it's the Virtual Manuscript Library of Switzerland is the name, I believe, which they have a helpful little IIIF logo in their all their catalog records, which is fantastic, along with the link to the manifest. So really great for ease of use. So what you can easily do there, say you're interested in that particular manuscript, you take that, place the URL into the box. You can add it to a collection or create your own collection, have it be its own object. You can do all the sorts of other functionalities that Omeka allows you, and also put in a thumbnail size. So that's going to run now. And what's happening here is Omeka's actually going out, taking that manifest, parsing through it for the metadata and mapping it into Omeka. And also it's looking at the URLs for the images and it's ingesting the images. Now, obviously you might ask, this is creating a duplicate of objects. So I will get into that a little bit more and happy to talk about why we made that decision to begin with. But what you're kind of creating right now is sort of your own manifest. So it's taking the manifest, ingesting it in, and what it's going to do is actually mint a new UUID for it. So you're going to have a unique identifier for this object that you're going to be working with. And I'm going to stop the video and just show you myself the way the rest of this goes. So let's say you've ingested that object, it's in, and I will show you kind of what ends up happening. So this is our instance that I will show you. I'm in the collections page. And I will open up this collection here. So one thing I would like to say, if you're not familiar with Omeka, Omeka has items, this idea of items and collections. We decided to make collections pretty much equal manifests in this sense. And the reason for that is normally when you ingest objects into Omeka, they do it one item at a time. Obviously, if you're going to ingest an entire manuscript or a book or whatever, that's several images, you don't want to have each of those as a separate record. You'd actually want them combined because they are truly one object combined. So right now what it's done is it's kind of linked it together, created a collection rather than one item at a time. You can go through each item if you wish, but for ease of use, you created a collection and it's created an actual manifest for that. So down here, you'll see there's a manifest URL. And it's a new one. It's no longer the one from eCodices, because if you're going to edit or do something to this, it actually should be distinct from the one that's at eCodices, because it's not the canonical one. You're gonna do something with it that you want to do for whatever scholarship or teaching purposes that might be. So you come up here, the title, the source, and the rights are kind of what's been mapped over. In particular, we picked these first because they kind of tend to be the most consistent across the manifests. And sort of the three most important, I would say. Where did it come from, what rights are associated with it, and what is the object? And then it kind of starts to list out some of the items here, and this is where you can sort of reorder items in this collection. So for whatever reason you decided that the sequence isn't quite correct, or you wanted to show something, do something with it, you can actually edit them right here. In addition, if you click edit, you can actually add in more metadata that you might have. So it's working with the Dublin core that already works with Omeka. And you can add in whatever it is you'd like. Description, obviously, it's fairly empty here because we've only taken out whatever was in it from those sort of 3 points. But you can add in more information that you have. And there's an extra tab now here that's IIIF collection metadata. That doesn't exist before without this plugin. And it simply is information just specifically about the manifest itself. So it'll give you, it maintains the this is the original ID that it had. This is the object type it is, whether or not it's a part of a greater collection, JSON data here, and then the new kind of ID that's been given for it. So you can do all of these. You can add all this information to supplement this object should you need to, and it'll update here and show and list out on this collection page. In addition, you probably saw as I was scrolling past, what it also did was it's embedded a IIIF mirrored or viewer into this page. So you can actually go through the object. This also expands, so if you can go full size if you need to look at it, and actually go through all of the items in the thing. So another interesting thing that you can do with that this plugin allows you to do is once you have this object in here is you can go and you can annotate. So it'll take a second, it'll load up the object, and you can sort of start annotating the object if you like. It works exactly like the mirror door viewer works. It's taking that functionality. You can add in an annotation, save it. Also here, if you saw that, I did a little quick, but you can also add a tag, and that tag is what exists, sort of works with the tagging feature along the left-hand side here of Omeka. There's tags here, and I'll open it afterwards, but it sort of corresponds directly with that, and it's just another way in which to work with these manuscripts on these objects and sort of organize them in a way that makes sense to the user. But you can go through here, make all your annotations. Once that's done, you can go back to the page here, and again, now it's loaded onto here. So you've made an edit to this, you've created an annotation about it. It's saving the annotation as an item. We added the annotation item to Omeka. So Omeka has all different item types. I will open that item types list for you here. So you have text, moving image, oral history, sort of standard stuff you'd see. But the one thing they didn't have that has sort of, has particular data associated with it was annotation. So we didn't want to create a new record type, which also exists in Omeka. That's actually quite a change to the data model, and we'd run into that problem of creating sort of our own unique thing that we wanted to avoid. So rather than do that, we actually just created an annotation item type in here that is an OA compliant annotation and has all the metadata associated with that it needs to associated with when you're creating an OA compliant annotation. So it's just just every other item type is just added onto the end here, and that's the plugin kind of adding that into it here. Again, I mentioned the tags. The tags are all here. They will list out, this is a testing site, so they're kind of like, why is jellyfish here? Just to show you guys. And this is sort of a unique way, or not a unique way, but just a way that our scholars really liked, because it gave them a new way in which to organize their content, because they may have stuff from all over the place, they have their own images, whatever. It's all meaningful to them in some way, and they need to organize it to sort of show that meaning or make it easier to navigate through and sort of make those scholarly inquiries into it easier. So this is why we wanted to connect into this functionality, and this plugin allows that as well. So if I go back to collections, I just want to show you guys again here. So we have all of this. It's great. This is sort of like biggest changes are right here. But what you can also do, which is exciting, is now that you have this in this object within the Omeka infrastructure here, you can make use of other popular plugins and use that content exactly the way it is in it. So for example, in exhibits, you can actually use this IIIF content and make an exhibit and use the mirror door image viewer in it as well. So I'll show you, for example, we have a exhibit here. We have some content about it, giving it some context. But then we have embedded here is the actual mirror viewer along with any of the annotations that are made on these objects. So what you can do is you can take different objects, and they don't have to be the entire manuscript. So in particular, this one here, the whole point of this exhibit is actually identifying handwriting in multiple different manuscripts. So they're not going to put all of the images of every manuscript into this exhibit. That wouldn't be very useful. What they're actually doing is cherry picking the images that they want and placing them into this exhibit, and they come from all different manuscripts. And so you can do that with this exhibit plugin now with the addition of the IIIF Toolkit plugin. So you can select which ones you want and put them in here and sort of curate this sort of experience of the content that you want to see along with any work that you've done. Here they've just done transcriptions of the handwriting that's found in these manuscripts, but you can imagine all sorts of things that could be going on here. So and additionally, you could put in this mirror door viewer, and perhaps you don't have any of the content in Omeka, or there's some content you want to show, but you don't really want to ingest it because you don't have anything to add. You just want to make note of the fact that there's some sort of relationship between the two things. You can actually reference a IIIF manifest that's sitting somewhere else, and it'll load up in this mirror door viewer in the exhibit. So you can show, like, I have this object here, it's similar or not similar for certain reasons to this object that's sitting all the way over here. And I can actually bring them together here now with the addition of this plugin within the exhibits. I'm going to go back. I hope sorry, I just want to go back to here. So that's sort of the main functions that the IIIF toolkit will give you. The one thing I didn't show, and it's because we have to update something with it, is the Neatline application, or sorry, the Neatline plugin that already exists is where you can sort of put dots on a map or a timeline in sort of like a spatial sense and attach images to it normally. What you can do now is similarly with the exhibits plugin is actually when you attach an image, you can attach that mirrored or viewer with any annotations you might have about that object and expand it out and see it along, plot it along there. So very similar concept to the exhibits, it's just with Neatline. So now I want to show you the batch uploader. This is the second one that's probably the biggest. So the other use case we had here is the fact that a lot of scholars have their own images of objects. So for whatever reason that might be, the object might not be digitized, it might not be available on IIIF. They might just not have images of the part of the object that they're particularly interested in, and they've gone in person and actually made sure they took that image for later. And it's all kind of sitting on their laptop. They don't have it hosted on a server, it might just be sitting on their computer on their desktop. There was no way before this to actually ingest that bulk into Omeka. And so we wanted to sort of address that use case because it was a very popular one and it continues to be one, especially among manuscript scholars. They have tons of images. A lot of manuscripts are not digitized. If they are, they're not always IIIF. So we wanted them to sort of bring them into the community and actually bring them into using IIIF and doing some more interesting things that you can do with the images now that you have them. So what we did was, as I mentioned before, where Omeka allows you to go item by item, we've also addressed this here. So normally you would put your images on a server somewhere. You could tell Omeka, hey, take all these images and ingest them. And it would do that, but they had to be on a server. They would go one by one, so you couldn't put them together as one object, which again is a problem if you're ingesting a bunch of images about one object and you want to keep them together. And so we fixed that with this plugin. So you could take a CSV form, which was very popular. Everyone was comfortable using a CSV form to list out all of your metadata. You could map it however you wanted to the Dublin core metadata that already exists within Omeka. And also upon ingest, you could create a IIIF manifest. So again, I'm going to start a little video here and stop it at some point to show you and go a little more in depth into it. So here, let's say you have a bunch of images that you want to upload that are sitting on your desktop. You can start a job, as we see here, and you can create sort of a new collection of items. You can add to an existing collection. Perhaps you have more information or more objects that you want to add to one you've already created, or you can, if you'd like, just add individual items, because that is a use case. If you just have individual items, we didn't want to stop you from being able to do that, but we just wanted to make sure that people could do bulk all at once. So what you can do is you sort of, it works similarly to any other file upload you might have seen. I'm sure this might be slightly boring, but you get a CSV, it'll read the columns, it'll map the columns onto properties in a Dublin core, and you can actually adjust them upon ingest here as well if it's not exactly the way you want to see it. And then you sort of move along, it will scan the CSV file, see what files it's expecting. You have to click upload and it'll go ahead and do that. So you tell it kind of go here are your objects. It knows because one of the columns in the CSV has to be the file name, which might be obvious, any ingest for you. And then once that's done, we have a new collection in here. So what's happening is, in this particular case, because we said that we wanted a collection, everything to be together, what it did was it grouped it all together, made a collection, and minted a manifest upon ingest. So now you have a IIIF manifest of your material, which means you can do things like view it in a IIIF viewer, you can annotate it, you can share it, that kind of thing. Our toolkit that I didn't quite mention last time also has a hook that you can hook into a IIIF server if you wish. You don't have to, but you can. And that's just so that you can serve it out to the public. We use Loris for that because we already have Loris set up at the university, but you can do it for whatever you'd like. I'm going to go back into here and sort of, so we were in the batch uploader. We had the testing going, the objects going here. As you can see, we've had several batches go in. I'm going to take a look at this one in particular. And now this is a collection. So again, we had a bunch of just plain TIFF images off of our desktop. We've ingested them in, and we ended up with a manifest here. So now, because of that, I can put it in this viewer, and I can, you know, zoom in, zoom out, add an annotation, do all that kind of work that we could do before. Also, you see here, I didn't take the time to add any metadata, but you can obviously fill out as much metadata as you want, as long as you map it in to the Dublin core. You can annotate, as we said before, and now also you can use these objects in your exhibits, in your Neatline exhibition, do all those kinds of things, tag them, annotate them, and you have sort of your all this new functionality available to you now that you can do with these images that you just didn't really have when they were kind of plain TIFFs or JPEGs or whatever it is that you might have. So yes, that is sort of what I wanted to show you about the bulk upload. And I don't want to be talking for too long, so in case you guys have questions. I just have a couple more things to say. So what kind of use cases have we seen with this? So in particular, transcription and paleography have been the biggest use cases, I would say, because you can have that annotation capability with Mirador. Teaching the reading of handwriting via paleography is quite popular in classrooms, and transcription. So that exhibit I showed you where they had sort of highlighted the handwriting of somebody and transcribed it, those people were doing it because they were trying to reconstruct the library of someone who was passed a long time ago, but was an avid collector of books and manuscripts and would write in them. And so and now all those books and manuscripts are scattered all over the place. And what they're trying to do is prove kind of what are all the books that this guy actually owned. And they're doing that through the presence of his handwriting in these manuscripts. So that's sort of one aspect of it. We have an art history aspect of it. The bulk batch and upload I just showed you that had that big cross in it, the image, that's actually from one of our art galleries on campus that has a large medieval religious object collection. And they wanted to put these online because they want people to do things with them and know that they exist. And so they kind of created this exhibit to sort of to promote the objects that are there and try to get attention from scholars and other people who might want to do work with them or might want to come see them. With spatial DH, we've seen with Neatline in particular, I created a little GIF to show you, but this is the Neatline thing I was referring to before. Sort of some of the things that people are doing is actually mapping the location of manuscripts or paintings or whatever on modern day maps, sort of what they're paintings of or what places they're referring to, and sort of showing them all over the map to kind of get a better understanding of the object itself. I've also seen some interesting use cases in particular around talking about language, and also digital heritage in general. So for sort of more philosophical conversations about labor that goes into digital works, about ownership, how our understanding of who owns what when it comes to our heritage, and all the sort of things that go along with it, and sort of using Omeka as a way in which to explore that. So, you know, bringing objects together that don't live together currently in the physical realm, and then making sort of a judgment call about, or what do we know about the way in which these objects are presented? What does that tell us about the way we understand our history, or the way that we take care of our history, or the ideas that we have around who owns history and that kind of thing. So we've seen a lot of that kind of come up with it, which is not really something I maybe anticipated, but it's been really interesting to watch and see, and it's quite great to see that kind of used in the classroom as a new way of thinking through objects for a lot of digital humanities scholars. So to wrap up, the only couple things I want to mention is those are two huge plugins. We did create several more, and by we I mean Dixon created several more, and I'll just run through them quickly and just give you just to let you know what they do. So annotation remapper. So one of the things is, because everybody has all these digital images of objects that might not be the canonical images, and not the images released from the institution, they might not be digitized, that kind of thing, but you want to work with them and annotate them. Once those, hopefully, images do become, those objects do become digitized and made available via IIIF, you wouldn't want to redo all the work of annotating every image if you did that, as you might imagine. So Dixon developed an annotation remapper that actually allows you to upload both sets of images and map the old annotations onto the relative area on the new one. So it kind of saves you that trouble, or it helps most of the trouble of trying to redo that work over, because we're anticipating that we would like to see, obviously, more and more objects get digitized and more of them become available via IIIF. So that was our rationale behind that one. CSV export, this is sort of to the counterpoint of the import of CSV, as that you couldn't export everything in CSV before, and that was a common use case among our scholars because they're very comfortable using CSV. Low barrier, again, they would rather get everything out in a spreadsheet if they can, and so we added that as well. And the job diagnostics, which is simply just to let you know if jobs are running, whether that's batch upload of the IIIF toolkit while you're ingesting objects, and something goes wrong or something's happening, you can actually see what the error message is, because before you couldn't. So that was just sort of to help any users who might implement our plugins to kind of be able to figure out if something's going wrong, why that is. I've included links here, but if you give me an email, or I can post these anywhere if one wants to make them available, it doesn't mind. Just sort of, we have the links to all the GitHub. It's all open source. We have wikis on how to use all of the plugins as well to help you out. And yeah, so thank you very much for that. I'm happy to answer any questions, and you can also email me anytime, and I would be happy to answer. So thank you. Yeah, Glenn, sorry, Glenn's asked, I mentioned this, but did you say why you copy, the images into Omeka? So the reason for that is ideally would have liked to reference like a third party manifest, but Omeka Classic wouldn't allow us to do that unless we made some major changes to it. I believe Omeka S does allow you to do that, so the sort of copying into Omeka actually wouldn't be necessary. But part of that rationale was also because people are actually told us they wanted to do work with these manifests, do something with them, but they didn't know kind of like how, and they don't necessarily want to like, share it with the world in the sense of like, this is my manifest, put it over here and post it somewhere. But it was sort of a way in which for them to like present their own material, whether and link to it. So if they were able to get their hands on it and actually annotate and do things to it, they're not saying what they're doing is like the be all and end all, but it's sort of their academic process that they wanted to do. So the easier way to do that would be actually to have a copy of them in your Omeka instance. Again, not ideal. It's not the sort of the new manifest, but just a way to give people a way in which to actually use all of these objects in our infrastructure. We didn't have set up in a different way. This sort of annotation functionality, we kind of want to make a little broader use case for and actually figure out how we might serve our users in that way, and maybe outside of Omeka, but a way in which they can sort of make use of all sorts of manifests and do annotation work on them that doesn't require us to sort of import new images or like copies of images into a different database. I have a question about, so two questions about Omeka S. So I was asked this question recently. I think I believe a lot of the functionality that I just showed you that is covered by these plugins exists, or other plugins have been developed to do similar things in Omeka S. So I think a lot of it is covered. There might be a few things here or there that might be missing, in which case we would consider whether or not we want to make those available. But there's not a one-to-one, like there's not a IIIF toolkit version for Omeka S, but sort of the functions that exist in the toolkit seem to exist in several different plugins that now are available for Omeka S that I've seen so far. Again, I think most things, but not everything, but we are kind of starting to look into it, and I think we would be happy to add some there, because even at my institution, we are thinking about the future, and eventually, assuming that Omeka Classic goes out of support, we would want to move to Omeka S. So we'd want to continue doing IIIF work with it, and hopefully at that point integrate it better into our whole infrastructure with IIIF collections as well. So. I will say, in case anyone's interested, so we're kind of treating these two things as separate, like our collections and our scholarship. Ideally, as we keep developing, which is happening, all the time, that these things sort of merge. Like sometimes it makes sense that we want these collections to be sucked into our IIIF collections infrastructure and sort of treated the same way. And sometimes it doesn't make sense because some of it, either it's for class, so it's not meant to be permanent, or it's just people trying to use some Scratch base to do some stuff that they're uploading their own images that aren't really part of our library's collections. So it might not make sense to bundle them all together. But we do want to see some sort of integration in the longer run, and that might come with Omeka S and sort of resetting up the way in which we do these kinds of sites. But I mean, it's a sort of a group decision, and I'm just one piece of it, so we're not really sure how that's going to go. Yes, question. So yes, the annotation sorry, it's great. Yes, annotation item type hooray. Can you then visualize the annotation on its own? Yes. So so I'm not sure so you can definitely detach the annotations from the manuscript itself. So actually, I didn't show you, but part of the IIIF toolkit, it actually lists what annotations exist for that object, and you can actually export in CSV those annotations and take them elsewhere. It might not be the most elegant if you want to like then create a annotation list and put it on a server, but it works to get it out there as like the first step. And the annotation remapper, so the way that it works, I didn't show you is because I don't have a good set of images to like actually to show you how it works, but the way that it works is like, it's exactly the way that you're assuming it is actually. So you have your own research images and you put annotations on them. You can then upload another set of images that end up being the institutional ones, the nice, beautiful TIFF high-res ones that exist now. And you can run a job, and what it's doing is doing a mathematical mapping of like, if it's sort of on this region of this version of the image, it should be about this region on this new image, and actually it's doing it for you. And it's, I don't want to say 100% accurate, but it's very close from what I've seen. And so that it kind of reduces that workload of like, well, I did all this work with what was available. I don't really want to redo it on the new ones, but obviously I want to use new images because they're beautiful and like the official ones. But this is a way in which to do that. So yeah, that is how it works. So you simply just have your own, you upload your own images, has the annotations on them, you upload the newer ones, and you tell the computer like, this annotation matches over here in this relative area, and it takes that reference point and applies it to all of them and maps over. Great. If anyone has any other questions, you can please feel free to email me or contact me on Slack or anything, and I'll happy to help you.
I just ask you one before you go, sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So this is a question that somebody's asked me and I wasn't sure of the answer. So do you think that Omeka is a good solution for IIIF? Or would you say that it's better to have IIIF image server and Omeka? Or which way should you go around it? And I noticed you've got both.
Yeah.
If you're doing it from scratch, what would you do?
So I'm gonna say I would say with the server, because that's if you want to get the full functionality out of all of the IIIF things, because like the way we originally did it, or the way we have it now for a lot of exhibits, is like you can ingest the content, make it IIIF, but serving it out is the problem where it stops. But if you want the full functionality of it, you do need to hook into some sort of server. So I think those two things go together. And I believe there's an Omeka S plugin that is like a Loris or some sort of IIIF server. I don't think it's Loris, it's something else. And I think that is, you need that to sort of give you the full spectrum of ability for IIIF, I think. Not just on its own, it needs sort of that supplement there, which is not a huge thing, but it does need to be there. It can't do it on its own.
That's great, thanks.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. That was a great presentation. I didn't realize quite how much there was in Omeka, so that was great to see. And you'll be on Slack if anybody has questions,
Yeah,
and I'll be sending out the recording. So thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.